of self-regulation.
That's where like it comes though when we're talking about the like trying to be like more calm and peaceful. Like that's when like I notice when I catch myself like fidgeting and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that's like a part of my brain that is like looking, I don't know, like it's obviously like not completely calm.
Yeah.
Because I assume I would just be sitting there as opposed to like fidgeting with this stuff all the time.
For sure.
Are you like quite good at just being like?
No.
Are you not?
No, definitely not. But
Oh,
I'm
really?
trying to cultivate that right now.
Yeah,
Can you tell?
yeah, I know.
I'm like,
You're just like, I shall not move.
I am zen.
Yeah. Do you do any like? I think we've chatted about it before, but like, do you meditate or anything?
For sure. Yeah, I meditate, but I've been finding it really hard to stay consistent with it. Yeah. So I tend to just meditate when I have a moment, or when maybe I'm like biking and find a cute spot to look out and I just sit for a while. But yeah, I think I'd like to like bring it back into a regular practice. Yeah. But I need like some sort of external motivation or something more.
Yeah, I think that's something that I definitely find was like, I usually do it when I am not in a terrible headspace, but I usually do meditation and stuff like that when I've got the external push to do it because I'm like, something's stressing me out or whatever. Yeah. Seems to be that thing where like when everything's kind of going smooth sailing, you're like, you just forget, you know, and that's probably when you should continue to do it because you'll just like get like, you know, I assume you would just get like more and more like peaceful and stuff like that. But I know like I've said this to you already, but like part of me wanting to chat to you was about the fact that you have such a like a peaceful like nature to you. Like did you were kind of chatting about how like your mum and dad seem to be like really you seem to have like a really good relationship and close relationship with them. Like did you when you look at your parents now, did you see, are they similar to you? Like they're like ultra peaceful? For sure.
And it's interesting that you say this like peacefulness.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I don't feel this within myself.
Yeah.
But it must be more of like from an outward gaze. Because sometimes I might like appear super peaceful, but inside I'm like, you know, got so many things going on in my head. Yeah. But definitely, I definitely see myself in my parents a lot. Yeah. They're both quite chill doing their own thing and not, you know, I wouldn't say they're introverted, but they definitely, you know, they're happy just keeping to themselves and hanging out and seeing friends every once in a while, but really just like hobbyists. My dad is a huge hobbyist.
Yeah.
He just loves doing things that he loves. And my mom is like super dialed in everything that she does. And yeah, they're both very different, but both cultivate this sense of peace for sure.
Yeah. Because are you religious now?
No.
Nah. Are they? Nah.
No.
Yeah.
No,
so like when you were growing up, was there anything like, because I'm not religious and my parents, I don't think, my dad definitely isn't, I don't think my mum is, but we still went to like church as like kids because I think my grandparents were. So like when you were a kid, did your parents like kind of like expose you to any stuff? Or were they
like
just
religious stuff?
Yeah. Or not even necessarily religious, but ideas like philosophies.
I think just like freedom philosophies. What was this book that you were telling me about just moments ago?
The Way of the Hermit.
The Way of the Hermit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just trying to cultivate gratitude for life. Yeah. And didn't really need like a religious structure for it. I grew up in a beautiful home, like just in the outskirts of a small town in Quebec. And we had a little bit of property and just trees everywhere. And so that was kind of the playground and just run around in the forest and play with sticks.
Yeah.
But no, never went to church or anything. My parents grew up going to church, but kind of dropped it when my sister and I were born, and didn't feel like super connected to it. Yeah, which I'm super grateful for. Yeah, I definitely see a lot of, you know, I see how religion can be comforting to a lot of people, but I'm really grateful that I wasn't put into, you know, Bible camp or something like that.
Yeah. I almost at times wish I believed in religion because I like the comfort of it. Like, you know, the idea of like, I mean, I don't really think about it all the time, but you know, you think about like what is after this and stuff like that. And I think like religion, if you truly believed in it, it would be like really comforting to be like, oh, sweet, this is what happens.
Yeah, for sure. It's really comforting, but at the same time, I think there's some aspect of closed-mindedness that comes with it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, which I find is quite a turn off because, you know, it's blind faith in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think like I know like the fundamentals, and I don't know them all, obviously, and I don't know the fundamentals of them all, but like I know like people who I think they say if like someone's like truly Christian or Muslim or like a various other one, like they actually should be accepting of all religions. Like it shouldn't be so like, you know, I think in the media and like the current society, you see the most polarizing, like extreme version where they're like, no, like you have to like follow this doctrine. Whereas I think like most religions are like fairly open. They're like, you know,
Definitely.
you know, like they all say it's their philosophy where you should just treat people like you want. Like the one thing, no, I don't even know if it is a religion really or just like a practice to follow. But like Buddhism is the one that I in my older life, in my adult life, definitely resonates more.
Yeah, me as well.
Yeah, just like, cause I mean, it's pretty simple. It's just like be nice, like cultivate like inner peace. You know, there doesn't seem to be any like crazy doctrines to follow. Like no random thing in the Bible that tells you that like you should stone someone to death if they've like got a tattoo.
For sure. Yeah, a lot of Eastern religions I find to resonate a lot more with. But yeah, kind of funny that you mentioned this. I did just like a short Vipassana when I was in Thailand.
Right, okay.
And it was just like a meditation retreat. And we would do chants every morning. And they were, you know, they were in Thai and so we didn't really understand what we were actually chanting.
Oh, really?
I found really, really interesting.
Yeah.
But one day I found the translations to the chants that we were singing. And one of them was like, the Buddha is everything. The Buddha is love. The Buddha is always right. The Buddha is, and a lot of them were like, okay, yeah. And then it kind of went down a path where it's like, yeah, the Buddha is never wrong.
Yeah.
The Buddha, you must always follow the Buddha. And to me, that struck me as being a little bit odd because, you know, Buddhist philosophy at its core, you know, the Buddha never intended to be, you know, followed in this way, never intended to be a god in this way. But somehow our human brains, like it's like our human nature to want to follow somebody who's leading or that we really admire. And so all these religious constructs get created after the fact, which I feel like stray from the religion's original core.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a little interesting tidbit.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think like you kind of touching on like something to follow. Like I think you're right. I think it is such human nature, like to have like to want a path. Like that's me just now. Like, you know, I sign up for these, you know, kind of like endurance events. Like, and honestly, 9 times out of 10 is because I feel like, no, and like, and I don't mean this in like any like, soul searching, like what am I doing my life with, but I sometimes feel a bit rudderless. And then I sign up for something that like, you know, it's a goal down the line, you know, and it gives me like a path.
Yeah,
you know,
for
to
sure.
follow. Like, so I think like the idea of like, if I guess religion is like a lifetime one.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of gives you like this kind of path to follow. Like I think
purpose.
Yeah. Do you have like? Do you feel you know what your purpose is right now? Or is it just like
I don't know my purpose, and I feel like it's a constant conversation. But it's interesting. My mom told me not too long ago that she thought she raised my sister and I to be too free because we question our purpose so often and so much. And it feels like, you know, every second phone call we have with our mom, we're like, I don't really know what I'm doing. Like, I'm kind of lost. And then, you know, we figure it out and then we feel lost again. And yeah, I definitely do admire that sense of purpose that people have.
Yeah.
And sometimes wish that I had a clear sense of purpose that just stuck with me all the time rather than this like continuous questioning. But the questioning is a blessing in itself.
Yeah. It's like it's a privilege to be able to like
for sure
have the opportunity to question what your purpose is and be able to potentially choose it. I'm the same. I mean, you know that you probably want me talking to your mom, but if I was to talk to her, it'd be the same conversation, mate. I'm totally like, as you know, from like knowing me for a couple of years, I don't know whether I'm coming or going. Like, is it like Canada? Is it Scotland? Is it this? Is it that? You know, and I think I get really envious, and it is easy to see people from the outside. I remember chatting to a friend, and I was like, he has X, Y, and Z, right? And I was like, man, like, I'm so jealous. Like, you've got X, Y, and Z. And he was like, mate, I look at you, and you've got A, B, and C. And he was like, I wish I had. He was like, I wish I had done what you've done, and vice versa. But I, you know, like I am envious of people who, from the outside, seem just they know where they're going. They're content. Their path in life seems to be set.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, I'm at an age now where friends are getting married, they're having kids, they've,
Mm-hmm.
been in careers for a while.
Yeah.
And while I might not necessarily want to have their exact life, I do think to myself, like, wow, like, I wish I had that contentment.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like you, I think, where I've got no idea, man. And
Yeah.
I honestly, it's like a question in my mind. Most days, where I'm just like, okay, is it here, or is it there, is it this, or is it that?
Mm-hmm.
Do you, like, try to, like, so if you're thinking about it, like, are you trying to figure out what it is, or are you just like, I'm going to see where this takes me?
Yeah, I think there's an aspect of both for sure. Like, there's definitely an aspect of trying to figure out where it is, but this is kind of where meditation plays in. And, not that I've been meditating heaps, but just the philosophies of it, of being incredibly present. Because if not, we just get caught in this cycle of the grass is always greener. And, I was actually driving on my drive to Banff the other day. Like, the mountains were so beautiful. And I was just like, so focused on the road. I was like just thinking about, oh, okay, we're going to go skiing, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do that. And then I had to kind of take a moment and take a breath and be like, oh no, actually, like, this is the moment. And this is a moment that I feel like I was looking forward to for so long. And so, instead of looking to the next moment, I should just be in this one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, weirdly, I actually had that today in the steam room after the gym. I just was sitting there. I think it's because I was tired, but like that, it was that kind of like, it was like almost the exhaustion, like finally gave me like a moment of peace in the day, because I was sitting in the steam room, no one's there. I'm kind of like obviously like hot, tired, just like closed my eyes for a second, and it just was like a minute. I was just like a couple of seconds of just like, oh, this is like just like peace. My mind wasn't thinking about the next thing. And you're right, yeah, like, probably similar to you, where you're constantly, like, even not right now during this conversation, but like, I'm like, after this, I'll be like, right, okay, so like, go and make dinner, probably like send that email I was thinking about, then I'm back in the work tomorrow, and then, you're constantly just thinking like, yeah, and a lot of that is thinking about my purpose and where I want to go and what I want to do. So you're right, like, you have to balance that with like enjoying the present moment. I have made that mistake in the past with other places I've been. Like, I lived in Australia for a year, and I wished the whole time away, honestly. And I look back in it, and I know, like, I'm like, I wish I wasn't in a great headspace, so to give myself like, a bit of an excuse. But yeah, I wished the whole time away. Really, when I was in Australia, I just wanted to be somewhere else. I wanted to be home, because I was missing my home. That's why I wasn't really enjoying it. And now I'm just like, I was like, like such a unique opportunity to enjoy some time. And I just was constantly thinking about the next thing. I should have just been more present. And that, then as a kind of silver lining of that was I realized that, and it made me like, become a bit more present in the moment. But yeah, it's like hard to like balance your future life and where you want to go and what you want to do with like now.
Because there is an element of planning and, foresight and looking into the future that has to be done if you want to achieve things that, achieve dreams or things that you might be looking forward to.
Yeah.
Like, you do have to have an aspect of planning, but
like with your cycle.
Yeah.
So you're kind of planning like so give me like a little brief outline of it again. You're doing a cycle from obviously Canada, but where in Canada?
Not too sure yet.
Okay, right, somewhere in Canada.
Yeah, somewhere in Canada, maybe Banff or Nelson or Kamloops.
And then you're going to go all the way down to
Ushuaia.
Where's that?
That's kind of the southernmost tip of South America.
Right,
in Argentina.
All right, so like right down.
Yeah, all the way down is kind of the current goal, but it's an adventure, so we'll see how far we get.
And you were saying like maybe like 2 or 3 years. That's amazing, mate.
That's the timeline, yeah.
Because that's going back to this whole topic. It's like, so you're kind of planning something like fairly long term, but then also it's, you need to take it day by, like, if you imagine if you thought the whole thing like in the one go, it'd probably be quite overwhelming. So you're just like, right, cool, what's the next thing? The next thing is go through tree planting, saving money, and then get ready to go.
Yeah. Just hitting little micro goals along the way to feel a sense of achievement and growth, and like we're hitting stepping stones for sure.
What made you like? What was the inspiration behind that?
Oh goodness, so many things.
Right. Okay.
Which, interestingly enough, one of the things is a questioning of my purpose. And I always knew that I wanted to do a big adventure that felt really like really big and a huge undertaking and bigger than myself.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of like scheming up different ideas, had never really bike packed before, but always thought it looked like a super awesome thing. And at the time, actually, my friend Eugenia was getting ready for a big adventure with a group of awesome Mexican women rowing across the Atlantic.
Yeah, you've told me that's crazy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So they've done it or they're doing it?
They're about to do it. I think they're like in final stages of preparation right now.
That's crazy.
So huge shout out to her. Really awesome, super inspiring. And I was planting at the time and just had a lot of time to think and land and was just like kind of scheming up ideas. And I knew a few people that had done, Canada to Ushuaia before and just thought it looked like an incredible adventure. It's like, it is a choose your own adventure. You can go any route, you can take as much time as you'd like, and you can have friends join along the way and follow along the journey. And there's a lot of things that really appeal to me about it. And just kind of decided like, okay, this is the next thing. I'm not really sure I want to do another winter season skiing, after the upcoming one, and kind of needed a little bit of a change. So just kind of dove in head first, bought a bikepacking bike, like bought a bunch of bags and just started bikepacking right away. Just got super, super stoked about it. And shortly after started seeing my partner, Riley, and, quickly enough roped her on board and she's a big surfer, and so we've modified the adventure into not just a bikepacking adventure but a surfing adventure as well. So this is kind of where we're taking an adventure that's been done before and kind of making it our own by towing surfboards with us.
Yeah, I bet that's a definite like that was one question I was going to actually ask you, was like, is there anything like that you're like, I have to take this thing, even though it's kind of unnecessary? And I guess it would probably be a surfboard.
Dude, surfboards for sure.
Yeah.
Like we have to at this point.
I wonder, yeah.
We've like brainstormed like, not bringing it because, towing a trailer with surfboards on it is going to be really, really difficult, like going up hills, and we're going to do a lot of off-road. And so the trailer has suspension and, but just going up gravel on a fully loaded bike in itself is really difficult because you have to have a lot of traction and momentum and you're pushing super hard. And now we're adding like a whole new element.
Yeah, because you wouldn't want the trailer to be too long either, because if it's too long and then it won't like clear.
Totally. But the trailer, we've been like kind of testing it a little bit and prototyping, and it actually rolls so well. The trailer itself is so awesome. We got so lucky finding that thing. But we'll have to like build it up a little bit so it's a little bit better. But obviously the boards that we're taking have to be pretty short. And so this is going to be kind of a funny thing to explore. Like, I'm not really a surfer. I just like, I paddle out and get a little bit thrashed by the waves. And so this is going to be like a big learning for me is like, learning straight off the bat how to surf a shorter board. But it's always been a goal of mine, and so it'll be good to like dedicate a bunch of time to it.
Yeah. So you kind of go in like a coastal route, I would assume.
Yeah,
like
super coastal route, like Pacific route. I'll be starting off just by myself without boards, and Rye will be down in Mexico just surfing.
Oh, so I know you taking her board as well?
No, luckily not. Yeah. She's going to fly to Mexico with the surfboards and the trailers.
Yeah.
And actually going to buy some surfboards down there, but she'll fly down with the trailer and her bike. And we thought about me pedaling the US with the trailer, but thankfully we're
so you're literally just going to cycle?
I'm just going to cycle, just myself, my bike. And still haven't quite decided on a route, but probably like pretty coastal route going down the US. And then going to do the Baja Divide together, meeting up in Mexico and doing the Baja Divide, like that peninsula on the west coast of Mexico. And then try and hitch a sailboat ride to the mainland. And then our trailer will be waiting for us there. And pick up the trailer, get some boards, probably settle down for a bit and do a bit of surfing after doing the Baja Divide, which I hear is like a really, really rugged route. So I'll need a bit of time to decompress for sure.
Yeah, I think that's sounding like you've kind of got it like dialed in and like having a bit of a general idea, but not like exact. Because I made that mistake. I went to India like for a month and like everything was booked. Flights, trains, excursions for the whole month.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I was traveling by myself. So then what happened was I would meet people in a hostel in whatever, Jodhpur, and they'd be like, oh, tomorrow we're going left. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm going right. And you know, so I kind of like pigeonholed myself into this, like, no flexibility. I couldn't meet up with people. I could meet up with people, but I couldn't then go with them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think having like a general idea of where you're going and not like an actual route, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
So
yeah.
so like you've also got this like little like kind of like learning to surf along the way, which would be cool. But
and bike pack.
and bike pack, yeah. But I mean, in the sense, like, because you were saying, like learning, is there anything that you're like going into this where you're like, I want to explore this thing about me, or is there anything that you want to try and get out of this? Because I know you're kind of always like thinking about like,
yeah, for sure. There's a lot of different things that are inherent to a big adventure like this, and you know, one of the things is obviously the places that we'll be traveling through, and South America is a place that I've always wanted to spend a lot of time in, and like slow time, not just like, you know, book a 2-week villa stay, you know,
it's not the same.
like experience the cultures and see how they differ through travel, which bike travel is incredible in that way. Like you're kind of creeping along, which is, you know, a blessing and a curse. But in terms of myself, there's definitely a lot of things, and part of it is, you know, maybe to an outside gaze, I already am outside of, you know, mainstream society in a lot of ways, but I kind of want to separate myself even more and kind of strip myself raw a little bit. Like at some point you have to really suffer or go through a lot of discomfort to reveal things within yourself, which I'm really realizing and trying to do a little bit more. I feel like I've been trapped in a cycle of comfort and pleasure, which is really easy to do with, you know, phones and TVs and comfy beds and all the things that we have. And so I'm really curious to like strip myself raw a little bit and like be super uncomfortable and see what that brings up.
Why do you think you want to do that? What do you think it is that like makes you want to like do that? Do you know? Like,
I don't actually know. No, I don't actually know. And maybe it's that I'm surrounded by people who are doing these crazy adventures. And I think I think part of it is maybe the rawness of an experience like that.
Yeah.
In that you have the highest highs and the lowest lows. And this is something that I've always been super attracted to. And I really have seeked out these experiences of highest highs and lowest lows, like tree planting being one of those examples of like just working super hard. And then, you know, like I took a shower today and, you know, it felt good, but it didn't feel nearly as good as if I would have run 100 miles, you know?
Yeah. I know. Even when we did that like river plunge today, like, the coldness, it makes you appreciate like the coldness after it, and like being like, I mean, it wasn't actually uncomfortable, but it was cold. You know, like I was thinking, I was like, I enjoy this because it makes me, when you're sitting in when I was sitting on my couch, I was like, oh, this is like bliss.
Yeah.
You know, even that Saturday, like 30 minutes before we'd got walked out and done that and came back. But the sense of like, I was like, the moment was way more enjoyable. You know, after experiencing maybe like 5, maybe a couple of minutes of being in a cold river. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like kind of like pushing yourself. I think you're right when it comes to like society now is so like comfortable that it's, when you put yourself in like very uncomfortable positions, like the sense that you get after that, you appreciate stuff a lot more. But like when you were saying about like, you like want to get like more, so not necessarily like the challenge of the cycle, but like just you in general, like why do you think that you have this like question of wanting to like kind of just like, now this is, as soon as I've said this, it now sounds stupid in my head to ask it, but I'll continue with it, like to evolve like your characteristics even further than they are. And I mean that, I guess, because like, you know, the average person is just like, they don't really think about, you know, like pushing themselves to experience more pain to like develop their character. Like, why do you think that you have, is there anything in particular that you have?
I think there's always been this aspect of like self-improvement that I've been like naturally drawn to, I guess. My parents and my sister especially are all very driven to improve themselves, whether that be at just a skill or their character or anything really. And so I guess it's maybe ingrained in me being the younger child in the family of like, okay, this is what we do is we try to improve. And I do struggle with that sometimes of not being able to just like sit with myself and really just be, because I'm like, oh man, like I'm not enough.
Yeah.
Which is definitely a curse. But I think a huge part of that desire to improve is to be a better human for everybody around. Like I have no doubt that me doing this adventure, I'm going to come back a better human, to be able to, nurture relationships a little bit better. And, I'll just learn a lot of things and maybe be a better partner to Riley. And yeah.
Do you think so there wasn't like a thing that happened that kind of like changed your opinion? It's just have you just kind of always like your family have kind of like nurtured this kind of like attitude of like self growth, as opposed to like you had this thing, it happened to you and you're like, holy shit, I need to like change.
No, I think it's always been a part of me, but obviously there's just, there's a lot of parts of myself that I know that I can improve on or change and, once you recognize those things within yourself, I find it hard to ignore or like, push to the back of my head, which I have been doing for a while. And so this is like a big step. I'm like committing to a step in the right direction for me.
Yeah, I think that's more common than not, to just like know traits that you have and you're just like, well, that's just me. I think most people would just be like, I'm trying to think of something, like people who have road rage and they're just like, I just have it.
Yeah.
And like, well, you don't really, you choose to have this thing that, and name any other characteristic that someone's like, oh, I'm just impatient. You're like, not really, like you could be patient. Yeah, and I say that because that's definitely something that I do. I was reading this book called The Art of Happiness it's like written between the Dalai Lama and some like Western psychologists. They like kind of got together, and I think the psychologist put questions to the Dalai Lama and then wrote a book about his answers. And like one of the things he talks about was like, if someone's like, I'm definitely oversimplifying what he was saying, but it was like, what happens if you're in a situation with someone, they're like, doing something, or like they're really pushing your buttons, and the Dalai Lama was like, use it as a test of patience. He's like, be thankful that person is giving you the opportunity to test your own patience, which is and I genuinely do think about that. Like for whatever reason that did stick in my head, and I think about it all the time. Like even when, just in even like little situations, even when people like you love, like, Cass might do something that is total trivial, but for whatever reason, it's like, I get impatient with it and be like, nah, like this is just like, test your patience, like, just like cultivate that. Whereas I think most people, as what I'm getting at here, would just be like, and this is not to say that I'm perfect, but like a lot of people are just like, I'm just impatient, that's it. But like, I think what you're doing and like trying to like explore and like grow, I honestly, like since the day I met you, you've always struck me, like you've always struck me as just like a fascinating person. And I don't mean that like you're something in a zoo, because it kind of sounds like I'm saying that, but just always like fascinated with like your like, even when, so what, like if you don't mind me asking, like how old are you now?
I'm 23.
Right, 23 now. So like I met you like 5 years ago. So like 5 years ago you were 18. I would have been, terrible math here, I would have been 26. And a 26-year-old talking to you, I remember being like, how is this guy so grounded and so like wise almost? You just had like a very like mature head on your shoulders, and I hope that doesn't sound patronizing, because I mean it to be a compliment. Like, so I just was always like, how's it, like, because I think most people like get, and I include myself in this, you get wrapped up at so much in like the day to day, like trying to prove yourself, or like your ego or something like that. Whereas that just, and from the outside looking at you, you might say different. It seems that that doesn't really like affect you as much.
But maybe there is an element of like, like you said, this person who's like, oh, I have road rage. Maybe there is an element of that within myself of like, I was told at some point that I was calm and peaceful. And so I was like, yeah, I'm calm and peaceful. And so now I'm just like trying to cultivate that, or maybe just like putting on an appearance of that. which
Well,
is really interesting.
yeah, but I think, again, I don't want to speak for you, but it doesn't seem that you're putting on an appearance, because I feel like you would see cracks in it eventually. And you've never, I was thinking about this today, by the way, which is random, but I can't imagine what your face looks like angry. Genuinely. Like, I was like, what would Tristan look like if he was raging? I was like, I mean, obviously I could, like, it's like a struggle, because you've never given off a characteristic, an expression, at anything, like, and no doubt though, like, there will be stuff that, like, annoys you, like,
For
we've
sure.
kind of chatted about it.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, you're right, like, about having, like, a character. Like, I was saying about how, like, Jim Carrey was saying that, like, he was talking about the characters that he played in these films, but he also said that he himself was a character, you know. He was, like, doing things that he thought people would expect Jim Carrey to do.
Yeah.
And I definitely think of that on myself, but I try and do it in, like, a positive way, where I'm like, yes, as a character, but, like, I would like to be someone who's more peaceful, like, someone who's more, you know, like, yeah, just like more peaceful, like less like kind of swayed by, like, the emotions of others. Like, that's definitely something I've tried to, like, over the years, is like, be in control of your own.
Yeah, me too.
You know?
Yeah, it's easy to be swayed by other people's emotions, especially when you're, you know, a sensitive person, or you care about that other person. Yeah, I struggle with that a lot. And, you know, being in a relationship, my partner and I, Riley, were living together this past year, and we're both, you know, super sensitive people, and we both really care about what the people around us are feeling. And that was definitely hard for us, because we, you know, we take on more than we should from each other. And it's hard to separate emotions sometimes. Like, oh, this other person's feeling sad, like, maybe I should be feeling sad too. But I think we've, through working through it a lot, and a lot of, like, you know, difficult conversations or difficult moments, like, have been improving in separating our thoughts and feelings, and yeah, taking separation from that.
Yeah, I think
constant conversation though.
Yeah, I think it definitely is, like, and I think you do have, like, a unique like, perspective, like, because I think I definitely came from that mentality of, not that anyone ever said this to me, right, but from the, like, social culture that I grew up in, like, I definitely came from, like, the, like, men are, like, stoic, and, you know, and I didn't say, no one's ever said to me, like, don't tell me your feelings, blah blah blah. But, like, yeah, the culture I grew up in was, like, a little bit more like that, where, like, it was kind of like, you kind of, like, if you're a guy, you kind of, like, piss take, and you don't really, like, chat to your emotions. Like, I remember one of my mates, like, telling him something. I can't remember what it was. I think there was a period in my life where I was, like, having panic attacks, and I think I told him about it, and he, like, just laughed. But it wasn't because he was mean, but I think he just literally had no idea what to do. So, like, you know, looking back on it, I don't even judge him. Like, it wasn't like he was being a dick. I think he truly just was, like, didn't know. I was kind of came to him. I was like, man, I'm, like, kind of struggling here, and I think he was just like, I was like, okay, right, well.
Wow. So for you, was there, like, a point that shifted that outlook and made it okay to be emotional and be open? And
yeah, there was, like, traveling. So what I did was, like, after that, so I kind of had, like, self-induced, and I say self-induced because I was doing things in hindsight that led to me having, like, a period of, like, 1 or 2 years where I was having, like, panic attacks all the time, like, all the time. And again, in hindsight, what I was doing makes sense. But after that, like, you know, my kind of, like, trying to, like, get rid of that, and, like, you know, find some sense of normality. Like, I went traveling, and I remember, and kind of, like, sparked this, like, what we're doing right now, this podcast thing. I remember I'd be traveling by myself, and, you know, through Asia and then Australia, and I'd meet people, random people, sometimes for, like, a day. I remember I met this guy in Singapore. We were both just sitting in the hostel living room, and he said, do you want to go? You say, what are you doing? Blah, 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 chatting away. And you say, I'm just going to go walk. Do you want to come with me? I ended up walking around Singapore with this guy for 3 hours. We had the deepest conversation, at that point in my life, had the deepest conversation I'd ever had with anyone. And I remember being like, I wouldn't even talk to this, like, my best friends I've known for, like, maybe at that point, like, 15 years or so. And it was the first time I was like, I realized that, like, I don't know, it's not that I realized, but I think it was just the first experience I had of people, just, like, guys and girls, but guys obviously usually, like having like emotional conversations, and not emotional in the sense of like, you know, you're crying, but you're just being open, and you're like telling this stranger about your worries or whatever. And yeah, just normalizing it, I guess. But then when I went home, totally back to
Mm-hmm.
that not being the norm, you know. And I remember like one of my mates, his dad has a problem, right? I won't go into it, but his dad has a problem. And there's like a bunch of sitting there, and my mate was telling us, he was like, oh, my dad's fucking doing this. And everyone else just kind of laughing at the thing. And I remember saying to him, I was like, mate, are you all right? And he was like, even he himself was totally like, yeah, fucking, ah. And I remember being like, yeah, but you act like, this is kind of like serious. And he was like, you actually all right? And he said, yeah, man, fucking, just telling the boys. And I remember just being like, nah, that'd be like, if that was me, I'd be kind of fucked, you know? But yeah, it was that experience of meeting strangers and having like these kind of like deeper connections with them, and enjoying it, you know? And, you know, sometimes the conversations aren't like crazy deep, but just ever since that point onwards, and again to where we're sitting right now, like I crave that. Like I love kind of like chatting to people about stuff like that. And as I say, it's not necessarily your emotions all the time, but
like vulnerability.
Yeah. And because it's not necessarily like, sometimes it is just like fickle stuff a little bit, but like being able to like chat to someone about it, I think, I definitely find value in it. Otherwise, like I wouldn't be doing this. Like this is kind of the whole premise behind this thing. You know, selfishly, I enjoy like chatting to people and like kind of using their time to make me feel better.
Yeah. And you're quite good at it. I know anytime I'd stop by and try and say hi just for a moment, I'm like, oh man, I almost feel bad because we chat for like an hour.
Yeah, it's funny. Like you definitely get meet people like that. Like you're like that. I would say I'm like that. I got a friend Keith, he's like that. Yeah, you bump into each other in like the street, and then you need to be like, and I actually need to step away, otherwise you just go down like a total tangent. But yeah, like I truly admire like your philosophy of like, just like, I mean, is it a philosophy that you have of like, just like, it seems like you're trying to like truly like push the extent of like your human like traits as far as they can go. Like how far can I take this thing to like become the person I want to be? Like you were chatting about like, you know, like jealousy and stuff like that, and like putting yourself in positions where you're like, you know, that most people, again, myself included, would be like, oh, I don't want to like avoid the jealous thing, you know, like don't put yourself in that position to feel that emotion. Like I guess I'm probably at the stage now where I'm like, okay, I'm going to feel the emotion, but just let it go. Whereas you're more like, I actually want to like put myself in these positions to like deepen. It seems like your own like kind of like character. Is that right? Am I
Yeah, totally. And you know, I think part of that is me trying to work on my sort of avoidant character sometimes. Sometimes I can be quite avoidant of negative emotions. And so part of that is me trying to be like, okay, this is exposure therapy. Like this is good. This is growth.
Yeah.
And yeah, totally. But I don't know if it's a philosophy as much as it's just who I am. Yeah. I definitely feel, you know, most at home just in the forest or with my bare feet in the sand.
Yeah.
Anywhere where I can be like kind of mostly naked and just like frolicking around.
I remember I read this thing that was like, you should wake up in the morning and put your feet in the grass. And I remember it was summer, so I was like going to work with flip-flops on, and I was walking out of my door and there's a patch of grass there. And I remember like, I was just like, it was really early as well, no one was around. So I was like,
look around.
I was like looking around. I was like, I started taking my flip-flops off and stood in the grass for like a minute maybe. And I honestly, I actually felt really good.
Yeah.
Like really weird that I was like, honestly, I was so skeptical of it, but I was like, I'm in the whole philosophy of like trying to like be self-growth. So I was like, I'll try it. And then I was like, wow, this actually feels class.
It's
like
super nice.
Yeah, it's weird how, I think again, maybe like society now, like we're so disassociated with like nature. You know, like the other, like, you know, we kind of chat about, you're obviously like getting into photography as well, and there's a lot of time like on a laptop editing.
Oh man.
You know, and then I'm the same like with this in my job as well. Like I'm on my phone and this and that, and I actually like try not to do that, but I still am on it a lot. And then like, yeah, you go, so I guess what I'm getting at there is like, yeah, like, sometimes you forget to just like look up, look around, like,
For sure.
you know?
Definitely. And this is part of what I appreciate about, going tree planting and having time in the bush is, this year it'll be a little bit different for me, but normally you're out there, you don't really have any service, and, you go out on the block and nobody else is around but you and your gang of friends, and you're just kind of frolicking around and,
Semi-naked?
yeah, semi-naked,
Yeah.
often. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But it just feels, it feels really human to like have your hands in the soil and be,
Yeah.
running around all day and then feel super tired at the end of the day. And yeah, it feels really, really human. Nobody's like looking at their phones or texting each other, and everybody's just there, which I guess is, how it was like 20 years ago, but times have changed quite a bit. And yeah, it's crazy how fast things are changing.
Yeah, as much as I wouldn't want to go back to being a farmer, like the like what you were saying there about the tree plant, and that book I was reading about the guy, the way the hermit, where he just lives in a cabin in the woods and chops his day is like chopping wood. His summer is like chopping wood for the winter. Like that's what he does every day. There's like a definite romance in my mind to that,
Sure.
like yeah.
It's just so human, like our human biology evolved for so many years just to be able to do those things, to chop wood all summer, to prepare for the winter. And now, with things changing so fast, our human biology isn't really able to keep up. It's like we're not evolving in a way that is conducive to look at screens for 8 hours a day. And yet we're still doing it.
I know, it's
and
wild.
we're still, I'm still doing it, and I'm still, eating a bunch of processed food and a bunch of sugar, and, I don't feel great.
Yeah.
And so for me, I just need to like take a big step back, like go cold turkey kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a thing that has me questioning, like for this bike pack surf adventure that we're doing, we'd like to film it, and we'd like to shoot photos and share part of the adventure with people around, and maybe work with brands that we can support each other and support each other's values of protecting the planet, and that entails camera equipment. And so this is one of the things that we have to bring, but we don't really want to bring, is like, I'm going to take a laptop, camera, spare batteries, maybe a drone, like a bunch of portable chargers to charge all these things. And so it feels like it almost might be taking away from that rawness of the experience and what the experience originally was in my head, and is now turning into like, okay, how are we going to manage this? How are we going to manage documenting this while still just being fully in the experience? And so this is a big question on my mind that we're going to have to navigate together. But yeah, is going to be quite interesting, because there is an aspect of that. Like there's an aspect of, taking photos or videos in nature can bring a newfound perspective on the world around you, but can also really take you out of the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like I'm not like I actually don't really take a lot of pictures, not randomly, because I think like for years I couldn't afford, this is really stupid, but for years I couldn't afford like a new phone. So I just had like a really old iPhone, like one of the originals that had like 6 gig of memory. So I just like couldn't take pictures. So I think I honestly went through like about a 5-year period of not taking any pictures, which is kind of random, and it sounds a bit random, but what I found, because I kind of stopped taking pictures, like I usually am like, I'll be out like doing something, and like everyone's kind of like just like taking pictures, and I know that I'm perfect all the time, but I do sometimes, I'm like, oh sweet, like I'm just here like actually more just enjoying it, as opposed to like kind of like taking the pictures. But to like be devil's advocate to that, my friend Scott, he's a photographer, and we did a lot of hikes in Scotland. And that's what we were kind of doing. Like we would go together, like sometimes he would be working, so we'd be doing like product shoots and stuff like that, or we would just be the two of us and he'd be taking pictures. And I wouldn't take any, because I don't take pictures, and that's, I'm living in the moment, if you will. But then, and Scott would be as well, but he'd also be taking pictures. But anyway, a week after the trip, Scott would then send me all these pictures.
Yeah.
That then made what I thought was a good weekend like 10 times better.
For sure.
So then I started being like, oh, well, actually, it's kind of like, it is like a weird balance of like, like what you're saying to your trip, like that is quite a hard balance to be like, you're doing it to kind of like explore what you were saying and like maybe disconnect a little bit. But then you're kind of having to plug back in to like maybe keep the experience going. Obviously, if you're trying to like get sponsors and stuff like that, like that probably would be quite a good, but like a hard balance. But you've got plenty of time to figure out.
We'll figure it out. Yeah.
And, yeah, I was going to say like I would say the trip. Like, how do you normally like do that balance? Like, do you like actually like have points where you're like, right, on a Sunday I'm not going to like, go on your laptop. Like I do that sometimes where like on a Sunday I'll be like, I'm not going to look at my phone, I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah, just in regular life, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really struggle with that, man.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I really struggle with that. And yeah, I find myself like, even if I'm like, okay, I'm going to delete all my social media, and, and then I'm like, oh shoot, but this one person's contact I only have on this social media, and then, I'll re-download it, and then it's just an excuse to be back on it. And so, yeah, I think I'm definitely trying to find this balance still, and is a big reason why I go to the bush every year, and why I just want to be in the forest, and why I'm leaving on this backpacking adventure. Like I kind of tend to need that strong separation, because I just I tend to fall back into it. Yeah. But I really admire your habits that you seem to have cultivated around it.
Yeah, my well, I'm projecting out.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. No, I do. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Is it working for you?
I think it does. Yeah, but it's definitely like I think I've realized that it's never. I'll never get to that point and then be free of like the negative stuff that I like maybe carry around. Like not like trauma, but just like character, like personality traits. Like I had journaled for like, God, I don't even know how long now, maybe like 8 years or so. And I was reading one from actually when I first came to Canada. Dude, I read it because I never usually go back and read it, but for whatever reason I decided to do this day. And I went back to read it from like when I first came to Canada. I think I literally was like months of being here. And I was reading me writing back then, being like, wow, this guy's like, well, like, kind of like, I use the word introspective a lot. I don't even know if it's right, but like very like like I was like constantly like being positive and like, thinking about like, oh, like thought about this today, but like tomorrow, like try X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And I guess what I'm getting at there is like, I was like, wow, like I didn't even remember that like, 5 years ago now, I guess. I was like, probably like, I think before then I'd been like really into meditation, really into self-growth, really into all that stuff. Got to that point, moved to Canada, probably had more of the personality that I wanted to have. And then 5 years later, not even realizing, but then like reading back in that part and being like, oh, like I actually was way more like content then. And I was like, fuck, I actually wish I was like that again.
So you feel like you've been like regressing?
Yeah. And just because of like, I guess my focus has just been pulled elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I think to kind of like maybe go back to what you were saying though, like trying to like just realize that you'll never, to the day you die, really, you're never going to be, you're always going to have to work towards it.
Yeah.
It can be exhausting.
It can be really,
when
really
you think about it that long, but then I guess it's
sure.
just more like.
Yeah. And I was talking to a buddy, Coulter, the other day about this actually. And I mentioned this to you.
You did, yeah.
And, a huge part that comes to mind right now is he was talking about, just having compassion to all of the different parts of yourself. And so rather than being maybe in your situation, in this case, being like judgmental at your current self, looking back on your past self, being like, oh, I wish I was like this again. Just like trying to cultivate compassion for where you're at now and being kind to yourself in that way, which is something that I struggle with often and try and remind myself of.
And I think it's interesting that you say that you struggle with it because again, and this sounds like I stare and look at you all the time. Yeah, I know. But like, just looking, you never seem that way. You always seem like very, very calm. And I guess everyone has perspective in life. You know what I mean? Like, and I mean that in the sense of like like we were talking about ski patrolling and how you were saying about someone might come in with like a broken leg and they're just totally like, nope, this is cool. like, don't worry, like,
Mm-hmm.
and then someone else might come in with like a grazed nothing,
Mm-hmm.
and their pain level like seems to be way higher, you know. And I guess like it's like everyone's perspective is subjective. So like, yeah, me looking at you being like, you seem this like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like very peaceful aura person, like you will no doubt have things that you're like, yeah, but I have this thing that like
Mm-hmm.
annoys me. And I think we were kind of chatting about it the other day, like, I don't know, like, with your ego, do you feel like you have like, how do you feel like with your ego? Do you feel like
Mm-hmm.
you've kind of like,
Oh, I definitely have one.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, it's a constant conversation with my ego, for
mm,
sure. Yeah. Of, you know, wanting to be the best, not always compared to other people, but wanting to be the best that I can be, like the best version of me. And
yeah,
oftentimes that involves comparison. And, I've always been like really good at things like pretty quickly. And so, if when I'm not good at something really quickly, then I get super, super down on myself. I'm
mm,
like, oh, yeah, I'm terrible at this
yeah,
when, you know, it's just another aspect of life and we can't be good at everything. But
yeah,
no, I definitely have an ego and it's definitely, it's definitely a constant conversation with it and trying to separate myself from it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I definitely think, yeah, like I try and like, I think just learn that your ego isn't you. You know what I mean? Like
Uh-huh.
the thoughts and the thoughts that it has in your head aren't your thoughts, if you know what I mean. Like, and
For
just learning
sure.
to just like let that go and not get swept away with it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I think what you were saying about kindness, like that's definitely something that I see the value in it more now for whatever reason. Maybe I'm just older and I've just had more experiences, but you know, like having kindness towards like even people who are assholes to you, because the only
Mm-hmm.
person that's going to suffer is you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I do it quite regularly now where I'll talk to myself, where like I've got like a couple of like two specific people I used to be really close friends with, and for whatever reason, I don't know if I told you this, but maybe whatever. But for whatever reason, they just stopped talking to me. I've got
Mm-hmm.
honestly no idea why. And they're not in this country; they're back in Scotland. And for the longest time, and it pretty much was when I came to Canada. So maybe that I just moved to Canada, and they're like, "Thank God he's gone. I never need to talk to him again." But yeah, they just decided to do that. I've messaged them, they just ignored it and whatever. And anyway, what I'm getting at here is that like, if I think about that, kind of like it fills me with either like sadness, but then
Mm-hmm.
also like anger, like why? Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
understand, like give me a reason. But now what I'll do is, you know, and this is like 5 years down the line, now I'll just like, as soon as I think about them, I'll just talk to myself and be like, if you think about this person, it's only going to make you either angry or sad, and the only person that's going to suffer from that is you. So what's the point?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And like just like, and just like trying to like be like, you know what, let it, like I guess coming back to this kindness idea, just being like, they've just decided to do it, just like, you know, give them like you know, like experience the kindness of just letting it go,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And then because selfishly it makes me feel better. I then don't spend like an hour thinking like, why have they like, what, like was it this, was it that?
Mm-hmm.
You're just like, sweet, they've decided to do it. And try, I guess maybe what I'm saying there is like in a broader picture, just trying not to be like bitter about it, you know? Because again, the only person that suffers is you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like really trying to like cultivate like that kindness and be like, but it's kind of hard. Like
It is.
people can be douchebags.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and we can be like douchebags.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
no,
can
no.
be like really tough. Like, oftentimes I'm the meanest person to myself.
No. Oh, to yourself?
Yeah, to
Yeah, yeah, okay,
myself.
yeah,
Yeah. Like I'm like meaner to myself than I have
yeah.
ever been to anybody else,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, trying to be compassionate and be kind is like, dude, a struggle every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it's easier than others. Like sometimes I wake up and I'm like, wow, yeah, I love life. I love myself. Sometimes I wake up and I'm like, whoa, today's going to be a gray day.
Mm,
And oftentimes it's because the sun's shining and maybe the sun's not shining.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm a bit of a plant in that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're definitely going into like like the experience, like the cycle is definitely going to like, it's quite funny. Like it's going to be like a real test of everything that you kind of want. And, you
Yeah.
know, I guess obviously that's why you're doing it. But, you know, similar to like some of the races that I've done, like
Mm-hmm.
you do it because you want to like, it's not that you necessarily want to suffer, but that you know that in the suffering you'll grow, you know, you'll learn more. You're gonna if I would again meet you in like another 3 years, like you'll be not necessarily totally different, but you might be like you definitely have changed, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like very cool that you actually have the willingness to do that, you know, as opposed to just kind of like sitting around.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that change.
Yeah.
How do you feel like have your goals, your big, endurance goals changed you?
That's a really good question. How have they changed me? I guess like giving me like a sense of belief that I can actually do. I mean, simply like I can physically do something like that. You know, I think there's like there's probably a lot more that I'm like struggling to probably like verbalize right now. But yeah, like I think for the longest time I just never believed that I would daydream about people who would do stuff like that, like an Ironman, like, wow, like that'd be amazing.
Crazy.
You know, we were kind of chatting about it as well the other day. I think it's more the biggest thing that has changed in me is realizing that like nothing's impossible. You know, like you do a thing, you run a triathlon, you're like, wow, I just did a triathlon. Like maybe I could do an Ironman. And then you do an Ironman, you're like, wow, maybe I could. You hear something else that you want to do, and it doesn't need to be. I think this is maybe after the swim, I'll maybe step away from like. I think I'll always do endurance things, but I might try and like cultivate like a different part. You know, like maybe something more like music or like learn a language or something like that. But I guess what I'm saying there is like it makes you realize that you can like the thing that you thought was once impossible was possible. So like. You know, you just like, it opens your eyes and you're like, oh, I could probably do anything really.
Have you always been like super like dialed in like routine or motivation? Like I'm seeing you like every day that I've been here, like you've gone out and done a swim and like gone to the gym. And have you always been like super motivated or dialed in that sense?
Maybe like as a kid, yeah, but like definitely like drifted away in my kind of like teens to 20s. Just got caught up in the UK culture of like kind of going out drinking and stuff like that. But yeah, I was kind of lucky, like similar to you, like my parents just like, you know, really positive people. They are really big sports people, which kind of probably makes sense. And yeah, they probably were like like more. I don't want to use the word strict because that sounds negative, but yeah, they were like parents that like kind of made you do things. So yeah, like I definitely had a routine as a kid, and then yeah, kind of got lost a little bit. Had some fun times in my teens and 20s, definitely.
As you should.
But then yeah, when I kind of had that experience of everything kind of crashing around me, I was like, I mean, in hindsight, I didn't think this clearly at the time, but looking back on it, I effectively was just like, how, like, what, when I had a peaceful and content life, like, what was I doing? And it was kind of like routine, eating healthy, training, not poisoning my body with like, with these different things. And yeah, I think like it definitely like, between Canada and the UK, like, I think Canada seems to like, I want to say it's like a bit of a healthier like culture. Like it seems less so. Like where you grew up, like was there like a big like drink and drug scene or anything? Oh, was there? Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, and I think we definitely live. I mean, Banff, there is a big scene
Banff,
like that, but maybe in the circles that you're in, it's like a bit of an isolated pocket of humans. But there definitely is a big like drinking culture and drug culture, and it's it's a little bit funny for sure of it's just the norm that people go to university not to learn, but they go to like party and to live out those years of having fun, and which is there's nothing wrong with that, but it's definitely kind of funny to go to school to party and then come out of it with a degree and not really party experience and not really like feel a little bit lost, I guess, after that big experience.
And I think like trying to know, I mean, I didn't go to university, like I did an apprenticeship in engineering, and I ultimately did it because that's what my dad did. It was his business I worked for. I had a very like and yeah, it's just something that was there, and I was like, cool, that's why I did it. But I can't even remember what I was going to say there. But yeah, sorry, what I was going to say was like, at that age, like people are trying to figure out what they want to do,
Yeah.
you know, and then like going to uni and like so many people I know came out of uni. I'd probably say it's like 50-50. 50% come out, they do the thing.
Yeah.
And 50% come out like, and don't. I was about to say like me, I never went, but you know.
Yeah.
But I think like touching on like what you were saying, you kind of like alluded to there with like the culture, and we were chatting about it earlier, like earlier today or even yesterday, about how like, you know, like the people that you the people that you grow up with and the people that you surround yourself with, and even in later life, like that also shapes, you know, who you are. And,
Definitely.
you know, we were chatting about,
Yeah.
we were chatting more about like I think your sister and like like her relationship and how that kind of like influenced you as well, you know, and I think that's so true where it's like, now I see it, but like when you're younger, I don't think you appreciate like how much where you're brought up and who you're with influences you. Like, I wonder if like roles reversed, like would I be you and would you be me if we had like a different upbringing? So I guess that's like nature and nurture.
Nature and nurture. It's a crazy big question, hey, but I definitely believe a lot in nurture.
Yeah, my dad's not. He's like nature.
Yeah. Nature.
He's like totally like, my dad's a really nice guy. So
Yeah.
this is going to sound really judgmental, but he's not like this. But he's like total, like if someone's fat, he's like, because they're genetically predisposed to being fat.
Really?
Yeah, he's totally like that.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I remember having a conversation about him with my two sisters, neither of which are fat, but their personalities are different. And I was like, we were kind of having a discussion about it, and I was like, he believes that Sophie and Alice, my sisters, their characteristics, their personalities, they're like, that's who they are. Like, regardless of when they were, if Alice had been born when Sophie was born and they swapped their friends and whatever, he believes that they are who they are.
Wow.
Yeah. Whereas I'm more the opposite. I'm more like the nurture side of things.
Yeah.
You know?
That's really, really interesting. Yeah.
And maybe I'm kind of doing a disservice there. I bet you he is. I'm making it sound like he's super rigid on that idea. I bet you if you really went into it, you'd have a bit more flexibility with it. But he leans way more to nature.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, like, and I don't know if you've got this, like, has traveling around for you exposed you to like different groups of people that like negatively and positively have had like an effect on you?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Like 100%. I think, oh my goodness. Yeah. On both ends of the pendulum.
Yeah.
Huge yes. And I see it in myself. And this is why I'm like a strong nurture person, is because I'm easily swayed by the people around me.
Oh, yeah. Big time. Me too. Yeah.
So if like, you know, especially in my younger years, like if I was with a group of dudes that, you know, said something was cool, then I'd be like, yeah, totally. Like that's super cool.
Yeah.
And in the back of my head, I'm like, I don't think that's that cool, but I guess I'll go along with this. And then the more I went along with it, then it would like gradually ingrain itself in my mind as being cool, even though deep down, not cool. Yeah. So definitely had to break out of a lot of friendships and a lot of friend groups because of this and because of like misaligned values, which honestly led me to be really disconnected from a lot of friends that I grew up with. Yeah. Like I don't have a huge like community or friend group from like high school or I think we've just grown apart in a lot of different ways, which isn't to say that they're bad in any way, but just that we have different views on how we want to live our lives.
And see, when like you were saying about when people are saying stuff's cool and you're like, it's not cool. This is something I think this is definitely something I try and work on. I like, do you, now that you're older, will you say if you think something's uncool? And usually it's not like actually that's uncool, but if someone says something that you disagree with, like, are you, I struggle sometimes to just be like, oh, should I say something that I disagree and give my point? Or should I just be like, I don't actually, and sometimes, most times I'm probably like, oh, you know, I don't care enough to, and it's not even like correct the person, but you know, someone says something that you disagree with. Do you say it, or are you just more just like?
I'm getting better at expressing it. Yeah. I'm getting better at countering other people's opinions. Yeah. In the past, I think I've always been like, yep, okay, sure thing. Even if it's not what I believe, I just like smile and nod because you know I have this like intrinsic need for people to like me. I just like, I want to be liked, you know? So I'm like, okay, cool. Yep. Whatever you say. And I think I'm getting a lot better at being like, you know what? I don't care what you think about me. I'm
Mm.
going to say something about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely probably the latter stage of that where
Mhm.
I'm consciously being like, I should say something.
Yeah.
And I'm still at that. Sometimes I will, sometimes I
Yeah.
won't.
But sometimes, you know, it's just not the right time. And
Yeah.
sometimes you recognize that the person like won't even be receptive to what you're saying. And so sometimes there's no point in like creating conflict in that way.
Mm.
Yeah.
And when you do say, like, what do you think, like, what usually is the prompt that you're like, nah, this is the right time? Is it like, if it's like a friend and you're like, want to educate, or not educate them, but you want to like, you know, yeah,
Yeah.
have a conversation with,
Yeah.
like, 'cause I think if it's, excuse me, I think when it's a friend, I find it easier.
Me too.
But if it's someone that I don't really know,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm like, oh, like, it's not necessarily that maybe actually, you know what, I haven't actually really thought about it that deeply, but I guess maybe it is. I'm like, I don't know, I think I'm maybe just, I don't like confrontation to a degree.
Yeah, me too.
So yeah, then I'm just like, oh, if I say this and then they do, then it's not necessarily that, which is weird to then say what I'm about to say, which is I probably wouldn't care if they fell out with me, but I'm almost just can't be bothered with the falling out part.
Yeah.
I'd rather just go from like them liking me to them like not liking me. I don't want to do the bit in the middle.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's because when you do speak up against somebody like that, like you are an instigator of conflict in a way, even though it's like positive conflict.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to, you know, maybe give a different opinion or shed light on something in a different way. But yeah, there's an aspect of conflict for sure that, yeah, I see myself avoiding often.
And I think as well, it's also like I am, and I mean this in a positive, you know, to give myself credit, like I'm also very aware of the fact I don't know everything.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes I'm like worried that I'll like say something, and then it'll turn out that I'm wrong. Which, you know, it's not that like I need to know. It's not like you're expected to know everything. But yeah, I think it's probably the like, what happens if I do say something and then, you know, I can, or even if you know what you're saying is right, but like you're like, oh, I probably know that I don't have the confidence to like give the backing to like my decision. Yeah,
and this is the huge thing, like confidence. It's like some people will just speak up and just be so confident about what they're saying, but really they're just like spewing out like things that are just not true
Donald
at all.
Trump.
Yeah. Like any political party is just like straight confidence. And people just eat it up, you know, and, you know, myself included, like if somebody says something with, you know, a lot of confidence and that somebody that I maybe look up to, like I'm going to take it for a fact for sure. Yeah. You know, I might have a little bit of doubt, but I'll probably think about it and be like, yeah, they're probably right. They sounded really confident.
No.
They know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, like more like sinister stuff as well when you hear people like just like lying, you know? And you're like, you believe it for, and it was funny. So the book I'm reading just now, where it's like, you can like kind of spin any positive as a negative and vice versa. So like, you might say that someone is like, gullible, but like, you could also be like, they're really open-minded. Oh no, they're really trusting. Sorry, that's what it was.
Really
someone's
trusting,
gullible, then you could say that they're trusting. And that's definitely something that like when I was younger, I used to just like, someone would tell me something, I had no reason to think they were lying. So I'd be like, oh, like, true. Yeah. And now I get older, I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes I'm like,
you've been tricked too many times.
I've been tricked. Yeah, exactly. I've been hurt too many times. But yeah, I think like the kind of relationship that you've got with I just like with regards to the communication, like I think having people in your life that you can like trust and like really like talk to and like, you know, like know that they've got your best interests at heart. Like I think that's really important, but also like, I think it's not that common, you know, like to have, you know, maybe, I don't know. Like sometimes I think, and this sounds sadder than I mean it to sound, but sometimes I think like I've got so many friends, right? But at the same time, I feel like I've got like, I don't really have a lot of friends either. You know, you got like a lot of people that like, and again, you know, like I would definitely regard as friends, but then like, I'm like, who could I really go to if I'm like, who would I feel comfortable with? Like going to something, you know, in a time of need. And I'm lucky I do have that. Like, you know, I've got my girlfriend, I've got a various couple of friends and I've got my family. But what I would say is going through like a relatively hard time for me personally was when I learned who was kind of there and who wasn't, you know?
Yeah, I feel like it's something that everybody kind of needs to go through at some point, and, you know, everybody in, you know, the circles that we hang around with that are normally people who have moved away from home, which I think is a huge, huge thing of like, if you have a desire to move away from the place that you grew up in, then there's going to be an aspect of tough separations with a lot of people in your life. Yeah, I see this happening a lot. And I feel like it's something that we can all, like everybody who lives in a place that they didn't grow up in can really relate to each other about, of like, oh yeah, you know, my friends back home were growing apart. And that's just that.
Yeah, it'd be a really interesting, like for you, like do you have like a place to, I mean, do you think of like your mom and dad's place as like home? Yeah, do you? Very cool.
Yeah, well, you mean like still now? Yeah, I mean, I guess I refer to it as home, and I refer to the place that I'm in at the moment as home as well. But, you know, it will always be home. You know, it's a place I grew up in, and they still live there, obviously. But yeah, it's funny because you also still refer to the place you grew up in as home, right?
I would, yeah.
Yeah.
I would, yeah, but I'm the same as you. Like, I don't necessarily think of, I would definitely think of it as home, but like, where's like my home?
Yeah, it's a different sort of home, though.
Yeah.
You know? It's like back home. You know?
Like that.
Oh, thanks.
No, you're good. I think you just got caught.
You know, it's like, I always use the term back home and not just home.
Yeah.
Which to me, back home is different than home.
Yeah. Because with your cycle, like, you're like,
home is where the bike is.
Yeah, home is where the bike is. Yeah. Because when I traveled for a very short period of time, months, there's months. And I remember being like, I would go to I would stay there's a few places I stayed for a while. I stayed in a place in Thailand for 3 months, actually. So I only really traveled for 3. But
where about?
It was an island called Koh Tao.
Yeah.
I think you've been there.
I spent a lot of time in Koh Tao. Yeah.
I stayed there for 3 months, and it was funny how that little random, I don't even know what to call it, apartment. It was an apartment, yeah. That felt like my home, even in this completely foreign, other side of the world place. It was comforting to have a home, and not to give a negative, to put anything negative in your head with your cycle. But I think when I was traveling around constantly, I kind of not having a home, I probably struggled with it a little bit. But I guess your home, I guess that's what is the ideal home? Is the idea to home is being with Rye, having your bike and having your tent, then you're just taking your home with you.
Totally. And this is kind of my question to you is, what is home to you?
What's home to me? I mean, right now I think home to me is where mom and dad live. I think I still resonate. I think I still think of it that way, yeah.
And what about that place in Koh Tao felt like home to you?
If what about it? I think it was just honestly as simple as it was a permanent year jump. I don't know if you care about your jump or just fell.
Yeah.
All right. It was just a place where my stuff was. I consistently was coming back here. I kind of got used to the comforts of it. But yeah, we were saying, I don't know if it was in this or just earlier today, I kind of wish I want to get to that place. You hear so many people say where they're I went to this place and I just felt at home. I kind of long to get to that place, and maybe it comes back to maybe you're never content, I think there's a certain level we were kind of chatting about how it's a blessing and a curse to not be content. Because, it keeps pushing you to do more and more things, for you to grow further, do this cycle, do whatever. Because ultimately, if you were content, you probably wouldn't do any of that. You'd probably just stay where you are and you would probably just live your life, which would be sweet because you're content.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just hope that I get content and I finally get to a place where I'm this is home, and I'm not just constantly.
Yeah.
And maybe as my perspective, maybe I need to shift my perspective from I think of home what place will it be? Glasgow, London, name a random city. Whereas maybe I need to shift my perspective to home is with my girlfriend, regardless of where that is, or what do you think about it? Are you kind of
Yeah. Ryan and I were actually talking about this the other day. We just, we uprooted from our little apartment in Nelson and drove, a lot of hours to the island, and suddenly we were in Tofino and walked into a new apartment. And, I was only there for a week, but it felt like home as soon as I had walked in. And we were discussing this a little bit, and to me, it really felt like home because we were together, and, it was a safe space, I guess. It just felt comfortable. It was a space where I didn't need to be, constantly conversing with people, or I could just be. And that's really huge for me.
Yeah.
And I was just reflecting on how lucky and grateful I was to be able to feel at home in any place. And, I had a sticker on my water bottle for a bunch of years that said, "Home is where the gear is." And, that really resonates with me. It's like, if I have the tools to do the activities that I want to do, then I'm happy exploring, because, at the end of the day, home for me is like where I can look at the trees and, if you can see the sky and absorb the sun, then it'll feel like home. Yeah, I think like the whole, Earth is home to me, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, not to sound like cliche.
No,
anything,
yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Like, I think, I think that's something that I've experienced from traveling around is like, I used to think of home as like, I am Scottish, like Scotland's home. And I very much, I was going to say associated, I don't know if that's the right word, but I very much like put myself in that bracket. I am Scotland, I am Scottish, therefore Scotland is home. But, I've lived abroad for like, not including Canada, like I've lived abroad for like 6 years of my life, and it does change. Like I think you start to let go of the labels, maybe is what I'm looking for. Like you start to let go of the labels that you're like, I don't know if you ever had this, but you're like, I'm from Quebec, like, and you have like people from here are like this and do this. Again, maybe this goes back to the whole character thing. But yeah, I think when you live abroad, and especially somewhere different, you start to kind of let go of those labels, and then and it's good and it's bad, like, because obviously you're growing and you're changing. But I think not necessarily bad, but I guess what I'm saying is like, I think maybe like the negative for me just now is like I've let go of one label, as in like I'm Scottish, I'm from Scotland, that's my home. I've kind of like let go of that a little bit, in the sense of like I'm not like, well, therefore I have to live there. I've let go of that, but I've not yet found the other thing or the other place, And I think that's where I'm kind of in this like, I've kind of like let go of something, which in itself is growth, like growing, to like realize that that's, I am not this label, but I've yet to find the next thing. And I was reading this, I don't know, I think it was a podcast, and again, it sounds kind of like sad, but I didn't think it was, but it's called like the lonely chapter, where it's like people who are growing, they let go of their life and they let go of the friends that they had before because they want to be somewhere else, or like not even like because they're like, that's a negative place or whatever, but they want to grow. And to grow, they've had to move. And I'm not even talking about me specifically here, but this person was saying like, so they let go of this life and they let go of these friends that they used to have, but they've yet to get to the place where they want to be with the people that they want to be with. And they're in this like, he called it like the lonely chapter. And again, that's why it sounds sad, but it doesn't need to be that sad. And he was saying how like you're kind of like no man's land. You've let go of what you had. You've not yet got to where you want to be. And why a lot of like people so often don't get to where they want to be is because they get to this like lonely chapter, which might be like weeks, months, years of their life. And eventually like, and it's definitely happened to me, where like it creeps back in your head where you're like, oh man, I could go back to Scotland. And, I'm fortunate that Scotland's amazing and my friends and my family are amazing. So I don't hope this doesn't sound like me saying like, oh, I could go back to them as if it's like the worst thing ever. But, you're like, I could go back there because I know what that life is like and I'd be happy with it because it's a nice place. And, like if you kind of like give up on the dream of like getting to this other place, I don't know where this other place is, but, like getting to this area of like growth that you want to be in, like if you don't persist with that like lonely chapter long enough to get to that point, you end up never getting there because you kind of get pulled back to like the comforts of what you knew before, and I think I have no idea why I went on that ramble there, but like I think that's kind of like the little like chapter of life that I'm at just now, where I'm just like, I just don't know. I wish I just, again, getting back to this path thing, I wish I just knew what it was.
Yeah.
You know, I wish
Uncertainty is difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then, like, kudos to, like, yourself, you know, who sees that and, like, is actively trying to, like, put yourself in scenarios to experience it and get through it. And I guess I am by default and by accident, like, also doing that. And, you know, no doubt turn out positive for both of us, but yeah, it's definitely like it's definitely uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And do you feel like where do you feel like you're at in that kind of like transition? Are you?
I'm floating in and out.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I do. You know, there's so many moments that play into one side or the other.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel like to a certain extent I found who I want to be and who I am. I've come to accept, which means I've chosen the people around me a little bit better. And yeah, I feel really grateful to be where I'm at right now. I feel like I'm so grateful to have friends like you around that we can like just go so deep so quickly and connect with so strongly. And yeah, and so many other friends that I've met along the way, I feel so supported, and that feels super nice. I'm really grateful for that.
And with the aspect of being grateful, is that something that do you consciously have to be like practice gratefulness, or do you, is it just more of an innate thing where you, I guess what I'm getting at is like, I need to be like, be grateful.
Yeah.
This place is amazing. Your job's good. You've got a girlfriend. You know, you're lucky you have friends and family back home. But or are you more just like you just naturally are grateful?
It comes in waves. It comes in moments. But I think definitely have to cultivate it. I have to cultivate gratitude, because if I'm not like, okay, what am I grateful for? Or like, wow, this is a beautiful moment, I'm grateful for this, then it's so easy to be complacent and just like fall into the routine of life. And just be like walking down the street on a sunny day and just be thinking about your to-do list when, you know, the sun's shining.
So what are like, do you have any practices, if you will, that you actively like cultivate? I guess what I'm getting at here is like, so you're like alluding to like, at times you'll like be conscious of like being grateful. Like, is there anything else that you actively do? Like, I guess meditating,
meditate. You know, I journal, but I really struggle with like building structure for myself and following through with it. I have like moments of like super strong motivation, and for like a week I'll be like super dialed in it, and then it just sort of just falls away. And so this is something that I'm aiming to get better at, for sure. But no, just like day-to-day practices. Yeah.
Yeah, I would almost say I'm probably a little bit the opposite, where like I think it'd be better if I was less structured. You know, I think I at times have missed on opportunities because I'm so like in my routine. I remember one of my friends, Sam, came to visit me, and he's really like you. Like, he's just like a free spirit. And he was like, but he was coming for quite a long time, which I wanted him to come for a long time. But I was just like, I kind of like was just honestly just chatting shit with my mum on the phone. I was like, oh, Sam's coming back. I'm going to be working like a lot of the time, and I know he's going to be wanting to like do a lot of stuff. And she was like, Richard, I think it's good that she knows Sam as well. And she said, I think it's good that you're going to have someone who has an opposite lifestyle to you. Not lifestyle, but life structure to you. Because she was like, it's not the worst thing in the world to like have it snapped once in a while. And I think, like I need to be better at letting go of the structure sometimes and be more free. You know, like even like the stupid little thing of like going for like a river plunge with you, like just being like, yeah, sweet, let's go. It's like, I don't know why, like that's more of a small example, but like I've missed out on like kind of experiences in the past because I would just, it was out of my structure. And I was like, no, but if I do that, then I'll miss out.
Yeah, it doesn't fit in. Yeah. Well, this is good that we're hanging out together. And, we'll like rub off on each other.
Yeah, and I think, it's again, like going back to your cycle, like I never really thought about this, but like it feels like, you know, chatting about all this, and then the cycle seems to kind of constantly be like, well, that's, you know, you're going to learn that when you're doing it.
Which feels like really, really validating that it keeps coming back to that, because it just feels really right. And I think throughout the winter there were when we were trying to work out logistics or planning, there was like an element of uncertainty with the adventure, because, we weren't too sure what we were going to be doing. But as time has gone on, we've kind of like grown into stronger certainty regarding it, and that feels really, really good.
Yeah.
And feels really, really exciting. And to like have people's response be like, oh, cool, that's awesome. It's like so motivating. It's really nice to feel that support.
Yeah, well, like literally going straight to like an example of this whole structure thing. So like I'm like, what is the word? I'm trying to think of the word. Like, I think I'm really impressed that you are doing this, because like the structure of my life, I'm like, well, like, and I want to do this, by the way, but like, I'm like, oh, just like go like cycling for like 2 or 3 years. But what be my like career in this? And that's where like, I was also chatting with one of the cafe girls upstairs, and she wants to do, she was talking about wanting to do like an environmental science or something like that. And she was like talking about her career, and she was like, she really wants to get into it, or like do so. She was talking about wanting to do something for 2 years, and I was like, yeah, but what happens if you die in a year's time? You know what I mean? Which is really morbid, but I just was trying to give the example of like, you don't want to like focus so much on your career and the this and the that, and not enjoy like the moment,
Totally.
So like, is there any like thought in your head with regards to like do you have like a thought after the cycle, or you just like, I know it's such a far off thing, and why would you? But
for sure,
like, do you? Or are you like, nah? Because you never know what's going to happen along the way. I guess.
Never know what's going to happen along the way, but I've always been drawn to working outdoors, and I care a lot about the planet, and so I've always had like aspirations to do hands-on environmental work, but have never like gone through the steps to make that happen. And so this feels like the thing to do before the next thing, which I hope to be that. But really, I have no idea. And, I do envision myself being more sedentary at some point in the future.
Yeah.
And so for me, this is just the time to do it. It's like, I have no responsibilities. I don't have cats yet.
Yeah.
No cats to take care of. And so, I might as well leave for 3 years.
Yeah.
It feels like the perfect time. And also people that are older than me will always tell me like, oh, well, this is the time.
Yeah.
You're young. This is the time. And so it's like a constant affirmation that like, okay, yeah, I should take advantage of the fact that I don't really have any responsibilities, and I've been working seasonally for a bunch of years. And when you work seasonally, there's like so much uncertainty with, the next season and the next thing. And so I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just take advantage of that uncertainty and just be free, I guess.
Yeah. And so if you could fast forward to like any point in the next 2 or 3 years, like, do you have a point where you're like, I want to be here doing this with this like idea, or I guess what I'm saying is, if you could fast forward to any point in the journey, where would you be? What would you be doing?
Oh my goodness, this is a huge question. So there's going to be so many different aspects of the journey in terms of like, on the bike aspect, the surf aspect, but really like when I daydream about Ryan and I, with the tent pitched on a beach, remote beach, and there's just like a beautiful right point break, and we're just like looking at it in the morning, just like sipping our tea, and then we go out for a surf, and then we come back, and our bikes and our tent are just waiting for us.
Haven't been stolen.
Oh my goodness. Exactly. It's so remote that it hasn't been stolen.
Yeah.
For sure. That's one thing we'll have to figure out for sure. But yeah, I feel
like I totally ruined that dream there.
Oh man, I'm just like pulled back to reality.
Yeah, you're like,
no, our bikes are stolen. We don't have a home anymore. Yeah, that'll be interesting to figure out for sure.
And you're probably going to have a lot of days like that, like a lot of mornings. Like,
I don't know what the adventure will really look like, and this is our hope is by towing surfboards, then we don't need to be only surfing in the popular spots. We can like find a random break and have it kind of just not just for ourselves, but a little bit more out of the way.
Yeah.
But this is like definitely a daydream that I think about a lot, and it will be like squeezed between experiences of heavy sweating and heat stroke and discomfort and saddle sores and so many tough moments that I can imagine it feeling very blissful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is there like, I mean, we kind of chat about it again, but like, is there any like kind of, like mental preparation that you've tried to do for this, or is it? I mean, what I don't know really know.
This is a really good question,
what
actually.
you would do.
I think I'm gonna start going to therapy this summer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think I'd love to find a therapist.
Yeah.
If you or anybody else has any recommendations, I would love to. I would love to chat to somebody because, and honestly, not just for this summer. I would love to find somebody who I can chat to, throughout the journey, because it's going to be really mentally challenging, and especially doing it with a partner. I don't want her to be, like acting as my therapist or my only support. And so I'd love to have somebody else to chat to and to work things out with throughout,
Yeah, I think I don't actually know anyone, but I know that there's like a website called like BetterHelp.
Yeah.
I've never used, I definitely think there'd be great value in it. Like I would also do the same, but,
For sure.
But that's the only thing I can think of, because it may be convenient because you can do it on the go, because it's not like a fixed abode.
Totally. Like online is like definitely a requirement. And, another thing that I would really like the person to be is like very adventure focused or also into adventure sports. Because I think it would be huge to like have somebody who like understands why we're doing what we're doing. And that's a huge part of what it is. So,
like someone can relate to that. You don't want to get like a therapist who's like,
but like,
where are you?
Like, I'm really struggling because of this and this, and we don't have any water left, and you're like, what do you mean?
Yeah, it's quite a unique, like how many people could relate to cycling for 2 or 3 years, like across multiple states and countries. And Nathan and Jenna have a friend, Aaron. They've got friends Aaron and Josh. Josh, and it's Aaron and Josh. I don't know why I said Aaron. Boy and a girl. Anyway, and Josh has done what you've done. Not like the same route, but he's done like a lot of like long distance cycling. Like he might be someone to, not necessarily to be a therapist, obviously, but to even just like briefly connect with. So I bet he'd be able to give you, if you've not already, no doubt met people who have done similar things, probably give you a little bit of an insight into.
Yeah, this could be a good connection for sure.
Yeah, but I think, I would definitely do therapy as well. Again, not even for like, I don't actually really have anything currently pressed in my life that I'm like, need to, but I think it's kind of like, why not? Like, it's like any tool, like if it can even get you like 1% better, like, why not try it,
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that was something that I realized, like, again, when I kind of went through that like tougher period of a couple of years, was like, like you never think about training your mind. I never did at that point in time. Never thought about meditation. To me was like that kind of like Eastern, like kind of like Asian, like meditating, like what? Like, I guess weird. I didn't even think about it. But like, because I never really thought about training my mind, even though I trained every muscle in my body. Like I did triathlons, I did running, I did this, I did that. And then I remember once I realized that you could train your mind through meditation and just education. I remember it was like, that was truly like a light bulb moment at the age of maybe like 24 or 5. I remember being like I remember when I left school, being like, oh, thank God, I never need to learn anything ever again.
Yeah, totally.
And now
like that's behind me.
Yeah, and you were saying like knowledge is power. Like it's so true. Like, like just like, why wouldn't you train your mind? Like it's the thing that like it's how you see the world. It's how you interact with it. It's how you, like it plays everything. Like, yeah,
but it can be really scary, like to change your mind in that way.
Yeah.
It can be really, really scary. And I see this in people around me, and I see it in myself often as well, of like, okay, if I change this, like, will that change my entire identity? Will that change the way I see myself? Yeah, it's an interesting question.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think when I first started meditating, like, the moments of peace and quiet were uncomfortable. Because I didn't, it was like a foreign experience. Like, I was like,
where's the stimulation?
Yeah. I remember, like, when I was genuinely, like, no thoughts in my mind, as brief as it may be, it was, like, uncomfortable. Because I was so used to the voice, to the, like, to the, my mind just constantly being on the go. And now I find the total opposite. Like, again, when I was in the steam room earlier and I just had that, like maybe like 10 seconds of like, just true, just like nothing going through my mind. It's like, oh, like, I know like, do anything in my power to like actually regularly, like probably try on a daily basis to even have like brief moments of just like, just taking a breath in and out. And again, like I saying this to like 20-year-old me would just not, you just wouldn't understand what you're trying to say, but like just having those moments of just like, and then you just fucking jump straight back in.
And then you forget about it.
And then you're just like, no, I need like,
oh my God, phone call, text.
Yeah.
Scroll.
I know. Oh God, man. I know. Well, like, I appreciate you. Appreciate you sitting with me for so long. You've actually sat with me now for like 2 days.
Yeah,
the only part.
I feel like we've been podcasting for days.
Yeah, I know. That's the only part that we've recorded. But look, I genuinely appreciate you doing it. Like, I love having someone like you in my life who is. I just like I admire like a lot of the qualities you have, and hope to emulate some of them.
Thanks.
So yeah, I appreciate you sitting with me.
Thanks for having me, man. And I'm reminded of 5 years ago, actually, when we first met, and I was telling my mom about, Timberline and the people that I'd met, and she actually asked, like, oh, is there anybody who you feel like really like connected to? And I was like, oh, actually, dude, I said Richard.
Oh, did you?
I was like, I didn't say anybody else. I was like, there's this dude, like, we've only hung out a few times, but like, Richard is really, really cool. Yeah. And I hold this true to my heart to this day, man.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. I remember, again, like you said earlier, like, as soon as I think we just immediately started chatting, like, and it was just like half an hour would go by.
Like, oh,
like, I think the first couple of times we even did it, I remember being like, I can't believe I just talked to that guy for like 30 minutes. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.